It started with the rain. I stood at the kitchen sink, staring out at the bruised purple storm clouds when the call came. The sky was a mirror to the disquiet in my soul, a premonition I had tried to ignore. My 6-year-old son, Noah, was at my sister Isabel's house, a gilt-weighted olive branch I had been pressured into extending. I should have trusted my gut. When I dropped him off, Isabel had smiled, but it was a tight plastic thing that did not reach her eyes, which remained as cold as a winter lake. "He will be fine, Maya. Stop worrying," she had cooed, her voice too sweet. "She will warm up," Mom had said, her own words lacking conviction. "She's just stressed about the wedding." It was a story I had heard my whole life. Isabel was the golden child, the son our family orbited. The perfect hair, grades, fiancé, and pedigree. Her engagement party was a parade of my parents' joy, a stark contrast to the quiet disappointment that shadowed my life. I was the cautionary tale, the single mom with too many opinions, the black sheep who worked 2 jobs and earned her own degrees in the dead of night, the storm that threatened their perfect family portrait. The call came from Noah's tiny, trembling voice. "Mommy, can you come get me?" My blood ran cold. My hand tightened on the half-washed dish. "What is wrong, sweetheart?" Auntie Belle said I am too loud and she told me to go outside. I froze, the world narrowing to his shuddering breath and the distant rumble of thunder. "What do you mean outside, baby?" "It is raining. I am outside. It is cold." His sniffle, a tiny, helpless sound, broke something deep inside me. The dam of patience I had maintained for years shattered completely. I dropped the phone, the clatter swallowed by the roar in my ears. Without grabbing a coat or a purse, I ran down the 3 flights of stairs, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs, so loud I could not hear the storm anymore. It was just the beat of a mother's terror. I drove with shaking hands, the windshield wipers screaming against the downpour. Every red light was a personal affront. My world was tunnel vision, focused only on the pristine suburban house at the end of the road. When I pulled up to Isabel's immaculate colonial, I saw him. My Noah, my world, was a small, huddled shape on the wide, exposed porch. He was curled on the doormat, soaked to the bone, his bright yellow raincoat in a heap a few feet away, as if tossed. His little dinosaur backpack was open, his favorite books and spare socks spilling out, drenched and ruined. His lips had a faint blue tinge. His eyes, when he looked up, were red-rimmed and vacant. He did not cry when I lifted him into my arms. He was unnervingly light. He just leaned his cold, wet cheek against my neck like a ghost and whispered, his voice hoarse. "She hit me with the shoe, Mama. I was just singing." A primal rage coiled in my stomach, cold and heavy. I did not need an explanation. I needed to get my son warm and safe. But Isabel came out anyway, holding a mimosa, her silk robe perfectly tied. "Oh, come on, Maya," she sighed with theatrical exasperation. It was not that serious. He was screaming like a banshee while I was on a call with the caterer. I needed some peace. I turned slowly, shielding Noah with my body. "You hit him. Do not be so dramatic." She actually laughed, a light tinkling sound that was monstrous. It was a slipper, a soft one. "Kids need discipline, Maya. Something you are clearly unfamiliar with." I opened the car door, the rage in my chest suffocating me. "You threw my 6-year-old son into a thunderstorm because he was singing." "He is fine." She raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, taking a delicate sip of her drink. "Honestly, if you were not such a coddling, over-emotional single mom, maybe he would not be so." I slammed the car door, the sound a crack of thunder that was all my own. The rage came later. The shaking came first. At home, I stripped off his wet clothes and wrapped him in 3 fluffy towels. I made him warm soup, spooning it into his mouth like he was a baby again, kissing his forehead until the blue faded from his lips and the light returned to his eyes. That is when the tears finally came, hot and silent. But underneath the grief, a cold, quiet fury began to solidify. The worst part was not Isabel's cruelty, it was what came after. When I called my parents, my voice thick with emotion, there was a long, telling pause, then my mother's smooth, placating voice. "You always exaggerate, honey," and my father's annoyed rumble. "Isabel is just stressed with the wedding. Do not you go and ruin her moment over a little tantrum. Not a single word about Noah, just excuses, just the same old script, protect Isabel at all costs." I was her potential saboteur. I looked at my sleeping son that night and I made a decision. They did not protect him. They did not protect me. They minimized his pain and dismissed mine. They laughed. I was done playing nice. I was done begging for scraps. They had poked the wrong mother, and I was not going to scream or make a scene. I was going to do something far worse. I would make them remember this day for the rest of their lives. and she was the one who was going to beg. I did not sleep. Noah clung to me, his arms wrapped around my waist. I sat in the dark, my hand on his back, the other clenched around my phone, reading the text my mother had sent after our call. Do not make this into drama, Maya. Your sister's wedding is next week. Do not you dare ruin it like you ruin everything. There it was, the unvarnished truth of my place in their world, the inconvenience, the storm that always followed their golden child. But the part of me that craved their approval had quietly died. They saw the 2 jobs I worked, but they never saw the third one, the one that was about to change everything. The next morning, while Noah played on the rug, I opened my laptop. I had the savings, and more importantly, the connections. I had the investors from a tech project Isabel had mocked as your little side hustle. A side hustle that resulted in a patent for a data encryption algorithm now used by 3 major financial firms. A side hustle that had made me, quietly, a very wealthy woman. I called a lawyer, then specialists in real estate and corporate acquisitions. Then, with a slow, resolute heart, I called the exclusive country club where Isabel was planning her fairy tale wedding. One carefully worded conversation and 2 untraceable wire transfers later, the venue was mine. The reservation for the wedding of Isabel Thorne was, as of that morning, cancelled. The club was instructed to delay the notification. I wanted the wound to fester. The family's silence was a roaring void. No apology, no check-in. My mother's social media was a nauseating stream of posts about family unity and countdowns to forever. A few days later, a crack appeared in their facade. The club sent a brief email to Isabel. The venue was under new ownership and unavailable. She panicked. Her call was a sharp, accusatory hiss. Did you do something? I was stirring macaroni and cheese for Noah. Excuse me? Do not play dumb, Maya. You have always been jealous. What did you say to them? I did not say anything, I said, my voice a sea of calm. But it is fascinating you think I have that kind of power. You are such a bitter, pathetic, I hung up. Instead, I focused on my own event, a private celebration. I invited their network of family friends, business associates, and distant relatives who had always looked at me with pity. I hired the finest caterer and a string quartet. I had dozens of photos professionally framed. Photos of Noah and me, my promotions, my certificates, his finger paintings given the same prominence as my business awards. I wanted their world to see the story they had chosen to overlook. Isabel called 2 days later, her voice frayed with hysteria. They canceled the decorator. The band just called. What is going on? What did you do? I let the silence linger. Maybe you should ask Mom and Dad. Maybe they can manifest a venue for you. Her breath hitched. You are doing this to punish me. Punish you. My voice dropped to a whisper. Is that what you were doing to my son? There was dead silence. Then, defensively, he was being loud. And you will remember that every single time you hear thunder for the rest of your life. I hung up. The day of what should have been her wedding was brilliantly sunny. Guests arriving at the country club were greeted by an elegant placard, a private celebration of strength and survival, by invitation only. Inside, I stood in the ballroom. Noah, handsome in a tiny tailored suit, held my hand. I watched as guests, including some of Isabel's own bridesmaids, walked through the hall. I saw their eyes move from the photos to the slideshow, their expressions shifting from confusion to shock to a dawning, horrified understanding. Then the grand doors burst open. Isabel stormed in, a vision in her full white bridal glam, followed by my shell-shocked parents. Tears streaked her perfect mascara. Why? She shrieked, her voice echoing in the silent room. Why would you do this to me? I looked her in the eye and smiled a real, powerful smile. You hit my son, I said clearly. You abused a child. You and Mom and Dad erased us. This, I gestured around the room. This is what forgotten looks like. She turned to my parents, expecting their support, but they stood frozen. Because in that moment, phones all around the room began to buzz. A guest I had spoken to earlier had just leaked something. The security footage from Isabel's front porch. The raw, undeniable video of her shoving my little boy outside, tossing his coat and closing the door. The internet had it. Local news blogs were picking it up. Her carefully crafted image was immolating in real time. Her fiancé, I later learned, saw it on his phone at the empty church and quietly flew home. Isabel collapsed into a chair, her six-figure dress wrinkled and soiled. She kept whispering this was not supposed to happen. This was my day. For the first time in her gilded life, no one cared. Across the room, Noah looked up at me. Mommy, why is Auntie Belle crying? I bent down and kissed his forehead. Because my love, she finally saw the storm she caused. I did not want revenge. I wanted a reckoning. This was only the beginning. My parents approached timidly, their confidence evaporated. You did not have to destroy her life like this, Elara, my mother said. I tilted my head, my smile gone. Did you say that to her when she raised her hand to a child? She was under stress, my mom replied weakly. She beat my son and you laughed, I snapped. You do not get to stand here and moralize to me. Not ever. My dad pleaded, but to air it all out online, that footage, that was cruel. She committed a cruel act, and you posted photos of wedding cake tasting, I said, looking them both in the eye. You taught her that her cruelty has no consequences. I just corrected the equation. They stood there, exposed and impotent. A week later, I received an email from Isabel's former fiancé. It simply said, "Thank you. I hope you and your son are safe." 2 weeks after that, a major company pulled Isabel from their influencer roster. A month later, my mother called, her voice quiet. "We need help, Maya. No one will speak to us." I paused, letting her words hang in the air. "Don't you condone abuse?" She mumbled, "I guess it is just hard, having your own daughter turn against you." "I did not turn against you, Mom," I said, a long, weary breath carrying years of pain. "You were never standing beside me to begin with." Click. That was the last time we spoke. 6 months later, I stood in a sleek office space, preparing to cut a ceremonial ribbon. My tech company had just expanded. Noah was in first grade, thriving and happy. He no longer flinched at thunder. There was a soft knock on my door. It was Isabel. She looked hollowed out in a plain gray hoodie, no makeup, dark circles under her eyes. She held a manila folder. "I am sorry," she whispered, the words raw in her mouth. "I lost everything. I thought I was strong, but I was just loud." You were the strong one all along." She held out the folder. I could see therapy reports, legal statements of apology, and a handwritten letter on blue paper, addressed to Noah. "I do not expect forgiveness," she said, her eyes finally clear. "But I need you to know that I am trying, and I will never, ever forgive myself." I took the folder, not for her, not for me, but for him. Because one day, when he was old enough, he deserved to see that even monsters could learn to kneel. He deserved to know his pain was seen, acknowledged, and answered. And that even if the world tried to snuff you out, the truth, eventually, always finds the light.